Hey guys, so let me do a quick recap on what we did until last video. So what we did is we created a feature file, and that feature file was, this is what you have already opened. I kept this inside features UI folder because we had to segregate our API feature files with the from UI feature files, right? So we have a search.feature file here, and that feature file you can see I have written very basic test case. That is, I have a browser and URL is navigated. Then I'm searching for a product called as Dell, and then I'm validating whether all the products which we have displayed as a result of that search has Dell in it, right? So all the product lists should appear pertaining to the product such as Dell. Now, to keep things simple, I only check the first element, but I have to extend this to validate all the products which are coming there, in the Amazon search result. So that we will do that today. Another thing which we would be doing today is about the management of these locators, and this is very important concept in any automation framework. That is, how will you manage your locators, because what you see right now is not a very good practice of managing locators, because you see I have these locators placed inside my Java file, and that is not a very good strategy to do. Not about Java file, but about my locators is scattered in my tests. So this is your test and test steps. So your locators should not be part of your test cases. They should be kept somewhere segregated, somewhere which is not your test, and or we can call it as a object repository. Now, object repository concept is not new. It's been there since the advent of automation testing. So you need to have a placeholder where you can keep your objects, and that would be a centralized location from which or you can say single point of access where all your objects are kept, right? Now within that object repository, of course, you can have different level of segregation based on pages or modules. Now there are different ways of implementing object repository. If you talk about the previous tools, different tools which we still have, like QTP, UFT, they themselves have a concept of object repository. Like QTP has a concept of object repository. Then there's a new tool called as test complete. It also has a names mapping kind of thing, which again is a implementation of object repository concept. Now in Java, there is a very popular concept of implementation of this object repository, and that is called as page object model. Now that page object model is widely used across nearly all automation projects, and its whole and sole idea is to keep your objects in divided across various pages, and each page represents a Java file. So there will be a page, and page will be mapped with a corresponding dot page object Java file. So our locators will still be part of your Java code, but they will be part of a centralized object repository Java file. So now page object model, as name suggests, represents pages, right? So as I was saying earlier, for each page you will have to define a Java file. Now the problem in mind is, how will you define these pages, and how, on what basis you will design, or what basis you are going to restructure your objects. So now there are different ways of doing it. First and foremost, to keep things simple, page represents a Java file. So what you see here as a page, can all the objects which are coming here in this page can go inside that Java file. For example, this is a home page. So I can create a page called as home, and in that home page object, I will keep all the locators which I see here and make it as a part of that page object file. Now, second could be, if I go here, search for it. Now, this is something, this you can perceive it as a separate page of the application. Now, for this page, I can go again and create a separate page object Java file, and that is how I could structure my whole. And that is basically the phenomena of, or the idea of, a page object model file. That means every page has to be modeled or mapped with a corresponding Java file, and with that Java file we call it as page object Java file. right? Now this, for example, this page is a separate page. We will have to create a separate page object file for this. Now if I go and click on, let's say, not this, sorry. So if I go and click on this, now this is a separate page. Now you can see it has different kind of buttons and texts and images and all those things, right? So this will be entitled for a new page object file, right? So for this is how basically we can segregate or identify how many page object files you will have to create. So for example, for this page, this specific application, if I count on fingers, I can say for home page I have to create a separate page object file. For search page I have to create it. For product description, this page is called, can be called as product description because it contains the product description. For this I will have to create a separate file. Then for checkout page, for basket page, for payment page, these are typical e-commerce pages which any e-commerce website would have. Now, and there could be few more. It's not that I have to define each page for everything, right? Or it's not that I have to create pages for all the pages, or I cannot keep two pages or elements of two pages inside a single page object model file. I can very well do that, but that segregation has to be very, very logical. I cannot give you a right example for it as of now, but as soon as I get such kind of thing, I can bring things up and I can explain why I am merging two things inside a single page object model file. Or sometimes it so happens that when you click on any link, there is a hover or there is a pop-up comes. For example, I don't know if I could reproduce that here, but sometimes, or for example, in this case, for example, you see these menu buttons, right? So every time I go on to some specific link, there is a new elements coming, right? So you need not create a separate page object file for keeping all this data. Okay, so what you can do is you can have either, you can make it a part of a specific or maybe home page. You can because all these links and all these links are common to every page, right? So you can keep that inside your home page object model file, or you can also create a separate page object model file which will only keep the common elements. These are common elements appearing on all the pages, right? Since these are appearing all the pages, so ideally we would have to create a separate page object model file just to keep these common elements, even though this is coming on all the pages, but we need not go and add them in all these pages. So page object model is strict, but that doesn't mean you do stupid things there, right? So this is the example which I wanted to give. So all of these links are coming on all the pages, but that doesn't mean you should go and add them in every page. So what I can do is I can create a common object model file for these, even though this is not a page, these are just elements of the pages, but I can actually logically, I want to break this application logically. So logically this demands a separate page object model file. I can call it a common or header. I can say header page object model file, right? This is how basically you will have to understand your application. So if you're presented with an application, you have to first do an analysis on, and that analysis is based on, of course, you need to know beforehand what that application is. So you have to analyze complete end-to-end application. Then we have to come up with the models of that pages, or like how will you divide that application into specific corresponding page object models, right? This is something which you need to do. Usually in any application which you go through, you will have this something called as header, or you can say footer as well, which are actually common everywhere, right? In all the pages they come. So you shouldn't be adding those pages or objects in all the pages. You should have to create something called as common, even though that is not a specific page, but that still demands a separate page object model file for it. So enough said on how you will define or design these page object model files. But again, since we are in a very, very beginning of this course, so what we'll do is we will again keep things simple. So what I'm going to do, I am going to create my object repository. So what I'll do, I will create a package inside UI.po. Okay, this is my nomenclature. You can choose to give anything. PO represents here page object, and here what I'll do is right click, new, I'll create a class. I'll give it a name as home page, right? Or I can say home page objects. Okay, now in this home page objects, I can click on finish. Then I can also go and create the page which I was talking about, because in the search tab depths, if you see, I have two things, or rather three different kind of XPaths. One XPath, this is appearing on the search page. So if I do a search, now this is what that XPath is, and this is coming on a search page, right? So for this, I need to create something. I need to create a separate project page object model file for this. Then home page, I am creating to keep my top elements. And as I said, you don't need not say it's a home page. You can, and you can say common or page objects. So maybe it would make much sense if I rename it as common page objects. Right now, this common page objects can have all the objects which are appearing in nearly all that. It's not like in all the pages, but nearly all the pages. So that is the reason I'm creating this, and I'll all the elements which are on either coming on the header, including this, or whatever is coming on that the bottom or at the footer. All those elements I'm going to add here. Now I will also have to create search, because as I said, we also have a locator which is appearing on search page. Search page objects. Like that. Finish. Now in the common, what I need to do is, let me go back, or maybe I'll create one more. I need to, should be properly structuring it. So I'll create a package. I'll give it a name as, or maybe like, let's leave it like this for now. So let me go to common page objects. Okay, and inside this common page objects, what I'll do is, okay, I think I made a small mistake, because this PO package should not be part of step dev. So let me make some changes quickly. So maybe I'll go and create a separate package here, because my package structuring should make sense. I should not create anything anywhere, right? I should be following proper package structure. So I'm creating a package structure at the inside my source test Java, and I will kind of move this package from here. Rather, let me just create it, or rather I will just move it here. Okay, and I'll delete this PO. I don't need this. So yeah, this is where I am now, right? So page object is what I created as a package, and inside that common page objects and search page objects. Now how will I put these files here, right? So what I need to do, so I'll try to do these two first, because I don't want to have this hard coded here, right? So what I'll do, maybe I'll just, for the reference purposes, I will copy this code. I will paste it here so that I could explain. I will come and put this inside comments, right? So what you have to do is, I need to define these objects. So there are multiple ways to do it. Either I can start doing using strings, right? So I can write string search text box, and then I can write here, or I can write something like this, ID of this as search to this. This is the value for it. So this is one way of doing it, and I can, enhance this. But instead of doing that, what I would choose to do is to define these objects using their by objects, right? So what I'll do a by. So by is an object in Selenium, which we can be used to define the locator description. So I will use by, and I will write here by search text box, and I will have to make these as private, because the whole and sole idea of page object model is that these elements should not be accessible outside. So if I want to do something with it, I need to have associated method, and that method is what I have to call, rather just calling the element directly, right? So I'll explain what I meant by that, but first let's implement this. So private by search text box is equal to by by dot, sorry, something's not right, by dot id, and inside this I'm going to put my actual description, id description of that object. So my first locator has been defined here in this manner. Second is this, the same thing I will do again. I will write private by search button, and again by dot xpath, and inside this xpath I'm going to write my xpath for this. Right, fair enough. Now the people who have already watched my previous videos or attended my previous sessions, I usually used to explain page object model implementation using a different way and that way was is called as page factory. Now page factory is a implementation available in Selenium, which is given to us by Selenium itself to instantiate a page object file, and it requires a specific annotation, use of specific annotation called as find by and how and all those things, using all those things, and using which you can easily instantiate your class. Now this time I'm not doing that, because every time I've done that, people who usually watch my videos or attend my sessions only know how to instantiate or only know how to implement a page object model file is only by using page factory, but which is not the case. Page factory is not the only way by which you can create a page object model file. There are multiple ways, and this time I'm choosing to explain a different way of implementing page object model file. Right, so this time I'm using this implementation, and this is no less than page factory. It's not that page factory is the best, it's just different way of doing it. It does have some benefits, but that doesn't mean that we always ought to be using that. Anyway, so what I'll do next is my method calls. Okay, so after that, what I need to do, I need to define few things. Let me do that first. So first and foremost, for if you're designing any page object model file, you need to first of all define the web driver at the top. Now this web driver is a local web driver which has not been instantiated yet. That is, I'm not writing web driver equal to new Chrome driver. I'm only declaring a driver there. Then after, I will have to define a constructor for this. Now if someone asks you what is a page object model file, this is how you can explain the explanation which I gave earlier, and then you can also tell that what is the design of a page object model file. The design of the page object model file usually requires a web driver to be present at the top. Then you define the locators, and then you define the constructor of it, the constructor of the class, and then it has to be a parameterized constructor which requires a parameter, and then you assign that parameter which has been passed from outside while instantiating the class, and you will assign it to the one which you have declared at the top. So this is the typical way by which you can define a page object model file. Now if you notice, I have marked these as private. Now how will I access these elements outside? To do that, what you should be doing is you should be creating public methods which will actually do your job of performing operations on these elements. So I'll write here public void, and I'll name it as set or send keys, or maybe send keys is okay, or maybe set search text box. This sounds okay. So I'll write here string because I need to pass a text here, and now I can write driver dot find element. And if you notice, this is by. So let me show you that why I use this notation here, because when I do driver dot find elements, it requires a by parameter, right? You see that by find element by and by, and I have already defined my by at the top. And so now I don't have to put my find elements. I don't have to put my by dot id here. I can directly put this element here. Okay, so now my set search text box is done. Next is I will write here public void click on search button. This requires no parameter, and the same thing I will be doing here. So write here driver dot find element and search button. So now I have so this is it, guys. This is what is your page object model file. Every time you go and create a page object model file, it has to follow this structure. That is, you will have to write a web driver at the top. You define the variables, you define a constructor, parameterized constructor, and then you start making methods which will be used to set or click or perform operation on these objects. And once you do that, it will not do anything by itself. So you have to start making objects of these page object model files. Okay, now how to do that? Let me show you that as well. I'll go here and I will define a page object model file here. So what I'll do, I'll write here, or not define, initialize, right? So I'll write here common page objects, common page objects, page objects is equal to new common page objects, or I should not be initializing it here, by the way. I should be just putting it as null. And as soon as I am initializing a driver here, at that very moment, I can actually choose, or I can also do it here, right? So I can write, I search for product as, so instead of doing things here, I will have to comment this code. So I will comment it out. And I can write here something like this. So I can write driver dot, oh sorry, my mistake. I'll write here common page object, which I have defined at the top, is equal to new common page objects, which is the name of the class. So here I am declaring the object, here I am initializing it. And if you kind of is confused, all I'm trying to do is to initialize this common page object class, because I want to make use of these objects, these methods, and these methods in turn is performing operations on this, and I will actually want to do operations on these elements, and that is what I'm trying to do here, right? So common page objects equal to, right now I'm initializing it, and if you notice, I have to define a driver here because this page object model requires, constructor of this requires a driver, right? So I will have to pass this driver from here. And once I do this, I'll write here common page objects dot. Now my first method will be set search text box, and this is coming from here, so I'll pass it here. And second will be common page objects dot click search button, right? Now if you can compare this with this, you automatically will say the code is now much cleaner, and all my objects are not actually scattered across my test. They are actually presented at the central location. And imagine a situation where you have 5-step definition file, and everywhere you are kind of putting these kind of elements in all those files, and something goes wrong or something changes in the dev code. And development does that all the time. Developer always sometimes go and change the IDs and XPaths and all. They add new things, they modify things without even telling us, QAs. So when that happens, you have to go and modify everywhere. If you follow this approach, you have to go and make changes in all these feature files, all these step definition files, all these step definition files require a change. That's how you increase maintenance cost of the project. So it's never advisable, and it's highly recommended to keep these objects into a centralized location, and in our case that centralized location is our common page objects, where we have kept it. So something goes wrong, something changes, all you have to do is to make changes here in one single file, and that will be cascaded and reflected across all of your step definition where you are using these methods, right? That is how you basically introduce reusability, maintainability, and all those various code jargons which you have heard of before, right? Now I can also choose to do the same thing here, but for now, before I even go and make changes here, I'm going to run this. So when I go and run this, I have to run this run test UI, and I will run as JUnit test. Let's see what happens. So it opened the browser, and nothing seems to be happening. Let me see. Okay, so it's failed. Where it failed, it's saying it's failing at this step. Okay, so this is fine because it will not work because nothing was searched, right? It's trying, it is on the next step. So let me see why it didn't did anything. Okay, so reason why I didn't do anything is because I'm only finding it. I'm not actually doing anything here, right? So I need to do this send keys. I made a mistake here, and then I have to do a click also. Now let me try to run this again. Run as JUnit test. Now del search link came, and I think that should be failed again. I think assertion failed. Product no correct one displayed is displayed. Okay, so now this requires a synchronization, right? So why it failed? These operations work. So our page object model file worked. So our that topic is checked, that is working. Now why this is failed is because we do not have any synchronization here. The point is, the moment it clicked on search, at the very same moment, immediately after that, it was trying to find for this specific link to be appearing there. But unfortunately, what happened? It did it so quickly that the application did not get enough time to navigate to this page. So that is the reason we require synchronization, that we'll try to cover in the next video. For now, you all whoever is following this course, you will have to implement this page object model for this, okay? And you have to implement the same page object model for this specific element, and this will come inside the search page object inside this. In the way I have implemented this, you will also have to implement this. I will, of course, will implement it, and I will push in the code. Meanwhile, you can try it on your own and try to modify this step defs. And in the next videos, we are going to cover the modification of this. We need to enhance this validation to cover all the links here, which is coming here, and we'll also have to, complete or mark it as, or we have to implement this page object model pattern here as well.